Good evening, and welcome to SoCal Prep Report. I'm your host, Randy Rosenbloom. For the next half hour, we're going to talk about the top prep sports things that are happening in Southern California over the last week and going forward into this week. But we're going to spotlight softball tonight. We have two great coaches on, Jodi Borenstein of El Camino in the city. The Royals are ranked number one. And then in the southern section, we have Peter Ackerman. He's going to join us a little bit later in the show as well. From Oaks Christian, they're top ranked in the southern section poll. So that'll be entertaining to hear from both coaches. And by the way, they know one another, so we could have some crossover chatter between the two. But as always, joining me as the co-host is Tarek Fattal from the Daily News. And Tarek, always great to see you. How are you tonight? I didn't hear Tarek. I don't know why that happened, but if you
I'm
could.
here. Technical
Okay.
difficulties on my end. My apologies.
Okay, you want to restate what you just said?
Yeah. Sorry. I was just saying another week in prep sports. You know, we're getting here in the spring. It's starting to warm up. Weather feels good to be out there. Maybe a little shorts and t-shirt, watching a little baseball and softball. A great show lined up tonight. Two great softball team and their coaches want to hear what they have to say.
On baseball, Granada Hills today in the city section knocked off Birmingham 12-5 after losing 5-4 in the first game of the two-game series. Those appear to be the two best teams in that section. I know, Tarek, you're very familiar with both those squads.
Oh, man, it's the West Valley League. You know, anything happens. But, yeah, Granada Hills got a good one in today, 12-5. I think earlier in the week it was only a 1-point deficit. And I don't know, just to follow up, in the West Valley, they had that protested game last week. Well, the ruling came down today. Birmingham and Chatsworth are going to have to replay that game. There was a protest about an illegal bat. It was the batter wasn't called out, so they got to pick up that game in the third inning at a 1-0 ball game. Chatsworth with the lead, bases loaded, 2 outs. We don't know when they're going to play it. Maybe the first week in May.
Following a lot of basketball with UCLA for the Daily News, it is not 1-point game. It's runs in softball and baseball. I know you're still in that basketball mode. I do want to bring up San Pedro in baseball. They knocked off Narbonne 14-0. They're undefeated in the Marine League. And so San Pedro obviously has a good club, and they're going to play Granada Hills this weekend, and that should be an interesting showdown.
Yeah, anytime two city section teams match up and play each other, it's always going to matter come playoff time with the seedings and where you might be at home, you might be on the road. So anytime two really good city teams play, you know there's going to be playoff implications.
And before we get to Jodi Borenstein of El Camino and we'll talk softball, let's talk quickly about Sierra Canyon's baseball team. They've improved to 19-0. I know they got two terrific pitchers, but they're unblemished. That's unbelievable to win their first 19 in succession.
Yeah, so, you know, baseball, when you're playing so many times, you're bound to lose one. That's just kind of the nature of the sport usually. But for them, they haven't lost this year. They've got 7 Division I NCAA commits. One just committed to USC today. And so, you know, they're just really talented. They got the 2 arms, which is anytime you're in the playoffs and you got 2 arms in baseball, that'll get you deep into the round, or into the playoffs. So we could see the Trailblazers contending for a Division II Southern Section title.
Yeah, Newt and Thomas are terrific pitchers. Well, speaking of today, El Camino Real's softball team played today, so we're going to bring in Jodi Borenstein, their head coach, her 7th year. She's won 3 city titles, won the championship last year, so they're the reigning champs of the LA City section. She beat up on her alma mater, Chatsworth, today, 26-0. Jodi, how can you do that to your alma mater?
I didn't want to do that. It's just part of the game, just what happens. All respect towards them.
How difficult is it to win a game like that? You always want to win, but it's 26-0. I've done football games where teams have scored 90, and I felt bad about even calling the game, or a basketball blowout. Is that difficult in the dugout when you're winning that big against an opponent who you really care about, your alma mater?
It is, but, you know, we stay focused. It's a good opportunity to get other girls in that don't get the opportunity to play during the season. So we stay focused, make sure to still play the game correctly and respect the game.
I know Tarek has plenty of questions. He's fueled and ready to go. He's going to put you on the spot here, Jodi.
Jodi, I'm looking at your schedule. You've only got 5 losses. All 5 of them are to quality opponents. And then, you've got 16 wins. So it seems that you're either winning by a large margin. I'm not saying this is for every game, but most games have been by a large margin, or you're in some really tight games with some good competition. Can you talk about having the team ready, whether you're playing a really, really game where the deficit might be large, or a really, really close game? Is there something you do before those games? Do you know what you're getting yourself into when you're talking to the players and getting them prepared?
I'm always a big believer of a tough schedule, and I want to challenge the girls, especially early in the year. I want to have them ready for playoffs. I want to have them ready for league, and I'm just always been a believer of that. And we go game to game, we prepare game to game, but the approach is always play the same no matter who you're playing. Never play down to competition, never get too high for a big game, just always play the same. So,
Jodi, why Camino Real softball so good? I mean, you have 17 city titles. I know you're part of 3 of them as a coach, as the head coach. But the 17 last year when you beat Granada Hills in the finals 10-0, tied San Pedro for the all-time high. What about El Camino Real brings out great softball teams?
I don't know. We're just blessed we get such great talent that comes through there. We've just been so lucky. I've been part of El Camino for over 18 years now, and each year we just have such an abundant amount of kids and girls that have just such great talent, and we're just lucky year in and year out. Not just only great softball players, we get great kids as well, and they know what they're coming in. They know what the ultimate goal is, and they come to compete and contend for a championship each year.
Jodi, let me ask you this. I'm looking quite a bit of seniors. I'm looking at your stats, your top, I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like your top 9 out of 10 leading hitters at least. And then I know you're a pitcher. This is kind of the chance. Hey, who are the players that are really making this thing go, Jodi? Who do you guys rely on? Who are your leaders? Who's great in the field? Who's great on the base paths?
On the field, Brooke DeSmet is doing a great job, pitching for us, filling in for Jillian Kelly. She's really stepped up and taken control in the circle. We have Hannah DeGenova, who's over at third base for us, big hitter, going to Nevada Reno next year. Sophia Fisher in the outfield. She's playing center field. She was unbelievable for us last week at the Michelle Carew Classic. Robbed, I would say, 3 home runs. She actually was selected to the all-tournament team. Our catcher, Cynthia Carrillo's doing amazing behind the plate. Great command of the game, great control of the game. We also have Cameron Fritz over at first base, who's doing a fantastic job, also filling in as our number 2 pitcher. She threw a little bit today. She threw in Orange County for us, and she's just always ready to go. But very senior heavy and just having a good time with it. We're going to miss these girls next year. So, the ultimate goal is to go and win this year again.
Well, I'm sure you have a great chance. And I know your philosophy is you don't really look ahead. I asked you about, before we came on there, what your next game is, and you had to look down the road because you're on spring break because it's over a week away. You're a game-by-game coach. Talk about that philosophy, not looking ahead, and the approach is just that one game that's on the calendar right in front of you.
Yeah, I'm definitely one game at a time. I know the girls, look ahead, and that's okay. They get to do that. But as a coach, I prepare them for the game ahead. I don't want us looking ahead and letting games slip away from us. We had Birmingham on Monday. They're a tough team. They went out and beat Granada the other day, 2-1 in 8 innings. So teams like that, you can't overlook teams like that. They're scrappy. They have a good pitcher. They have Coach Rose's daughter at shortstop who does a tremendous job defensively. So you just have to approach every game one by one and just prepare for each one as they come.
I'm going to piggyback on that answer a little bit. you have the game by game, but are there like season goals that you put out for your team as well? Or is that not part of your philosophy? You always want to win games. And then as you're stacking the wins, there's always accomplishments along the way that you try and accomplish. Do you guys talk about season goals, Coach?
We do. We do a lot of that in the fall. We talk about goals. We break the season into 3 separate seasons: the preseason, league, and then the playoffs. So preseasons are time to, play the good competition, play great teams, learn, put ourselves in tough situations where we're able to find what we really need to fine tune to then prepare us for the second part of season, which is our league season. And really the most important part, because that sets the tone for where we're going to be seated for playoffs. And then after league, we have our playoffs, and that's a completely different season, because we all know it doesn't matter what you did in the preseason or league at that point. It's a loser, win or go home.
Yeah, it is one and done, but I have a feeling you'll probably be seated number 1 when it's all said and done, and you are the heavy favorite in the LA City section. I know you don't look ahead, but you do have Granada Hills on the schedule. That's the team in the West Valley that figures to give you the most difficulty. That's the team that made it to the championship game, who you defeated in the finals a year ago. Your thoughts about Granada Hills, and are they your stiffest opponent the rest of the way?
Yes, I do think so. I think they're a great team. I think they have most of their team is returning from last year. I know they picked up a freshman pitcher that's supposed to be very good as well. And we know them well. The girls know them really well. They play together, in travel ball. But that definitely is our toughest opponent, and we'll be ready for them.
Tarek, do you have a final question for Jodi?
I've got one more, and maybe it's on the, I don't know about complacency, not complacency. Maybe like you talked about, you don't want your team to go too low. You don't want them to get too high for the moment. But they're teenagers. They're having fun, and they're beating teams up. Have you had to have the hey, be humble talk with them? I know you got a lot of seniors, so maybe not. Can you kind of just talk about keeping them grounded? Is that difficult to do?
No, not with this group. I think they don't get arrogant. They don't get ahead of themselves. They know our expectations as coaches, and they're on board with that. So, it's funny you asked that, because we actually had a little bit of a discussion about that yesterday. They were not late getting out to practice, but a little late getting started. And we kind of talked about staying focused, not reading, not talking, not getting too ahead of ourselves. We're starting to get a little bit of attention, and I want the focus to be our games and to make sure that we're all on the same page on what we are trying to accomplish this year.
Hey, Peter Ackerman, if I say Oaks Christian softball, I'm going to want you to introduce him when he's going to come in here. What comes to your mind? I know you played him. You didn't want me to bring the game up because they won it quite handily. Peter Ackerman, Oaks Christian, what is he all about?
I love Pete. Pete is one of my favorite coaches, and I have all the respect in the world for that guy. I don't care what the score was this year. I love playing him. We just have a mutual respect for each other. I think he has a great program year in and year out, and he's having a great year, and I'm super happy for him. I'm his biggest fan. I think we both feel the same way about each other. I'll speak for Pete on that, right, Pete? But I wish him the best of luck, and I think this is his year.
Well, he's had a lot of great years. And Jodi, thank you for your participation tonight. I think the Royals are going to finish very strong, and I like your chances going forward. And congratulations to this point on being the top-ranked team in the LA City section.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Tarek, for having me.
You got it.
Bye, Jodi.
All right, it's time for your friend to come on. Peter Ackerman, he's an interesting guy. He's been around a long time at Newbury Park and now doing a wonderful job at Oaks Christian. And he's going to join us shortly, and we're going to talk about his program. And I know, Tarek, you like this guy. He's an interesting character, and he has a lot of fun.
Yeah, Pete's one of the best, man. I mean, Pete, I'll tell you right now, one of the fun things I love about Pete is when I'm at like Oaks Christian's football games or basketball games, he's always there. I mean, this guy's been there since the school was birthed, I'm pretty sure. So he's been around. He's been around as certainly as long as I've been at the Daily News. So whenever I'm at an athletic event at Oaks Christian, Pete Ackerman's there. And just, man, some of the stories he tells and just he's just got charisma and he cracks jokes. He got this dry sense of humor. So when you're watching a game, if you're watching it with Pete Ackerman, you're having a good time. So it's one of the things I really appreciate with my job, because sometimes coaches aren't that talkative. They're not as gregarious. And Pete Ackerman's one of those guys. He'll come over, he'll chum it up with you, and we'll talk sports. And I really appreciate that about Pete.
Well, his team today won. They defeated Agoura 7-0. There's the venerable head coach at Oaks Christian. Peter, great to see you again.
Hey, just to spice things up, could you put Jodi's picture back on? Because the three of us don't.
There she is.
You're lucky I'm still here, Pete. You're lucky I'm still here.
Well, it's probably your bedtime, but it was my dinner time, and I just want to do a small little burrito thing at the Ackerman Casa. Too late, and I missed dinner, so the wife didn't put anything in it. So just find a little salsa, and that's it. I actually
Tarek,
missed,
do you have advice on a burrito, a breakfast burrito for the coach?
Yeah, put that one in the trash can. Go get yourself a real one, and I think you'll be a lot better.
All right, let's get down to nitty gritty.
All right, let's talk again. Jodi, thank you very much.
Hey,
Peter,
wait, don't let Jodi leave. Jodi, if you when you
I
win
can't
the
let her go. You
championship
want her
this
so
year,
badly on the show.
Can I get like a pseudo co-champ thing if I beat you this year for the city championship?
Well, you already beat us, Pete. Do we
Yeah,
we have to continue to talk about this? Yes, Pete. I got you. I will.
It's gone both ways over the years, so that's why I respect the heck out of you, and you've done a great job with at El Camino with the Royals, and I couldn't ask for a better friend.
Thank you, Pete. Same to you.
Hey, Tarek, don't you love this mutual respect in the coaching fraternity?
Now, if I'm at the softball city championship, I got to ask Jodi about Pete. And if I'm at the Southern Section championship, I got to ask Pete about Jodi. I mean, it's just, there's a storyline going on here now.
All right, Peter,
Absolutely.
you're number one now. You weren't number one last week. Now you're undefeated. You got the win today over Agoura. You're ranked number one. Does that mean anything to you, or are you just more concerned about finishing strong and getting prepared for the playoffs? Because you are the top-ranked team in Southern California.
Well, that's only good for you guys who end up having to have something to write about. Number one doesn't make any difference in midseason. It's somebody once said it's how you finish. We've had a great season so far, and kudos to the girls for working so hard and having that number one thing. But it's not over yet.
Certainly it isn't. And I'm going to let Tarek chime in, but I have one more quick one before Tarek takes over. Why are you so good? What about this team makes you unblemished? Why are you tough enough to knock off the El Camino Royals of the world and other teams in the Southern section? Why are you so strong?
I think it's because everybody buys in. Oaks Christian for 21 years has always had their softball that the previous years we just stand on the shoulders of what we did in the past. And I told the girls this year, I says, our number one goal, all right, is character before championships. And we've worked on our team culture, and the kids have bought in. And when the kids buy in, they're fun to coach and they listen. And I think that's what the most important part is.
Well, here's what's really impressive. You're talking about a culture, and usually when you're building a championship culture, take some veteran-type play. Well, you've got Michaela Castor, who, I'll just say it right here live on the air, she's the Daily News frontrunner player of the year. She's unreal from the circle and great at the plate. But from looking at your numbers, Pete, she's kind of, I don't know about your lone senior. I haven't looked at your roster, but she's one of few, if any. You got a lot of juniors and sophomores, so it's quite impressive. You've got juniors, sophomores, and you're creating this culture. You're unbeaten. How do you explain that?
I think the school and the program sells itself.
Okay, quick answer. I got a follow up then. Talk about Michaela Castor. I mean, is she maybe one of your all time best players at Oaks Christian? Pete, you've been there a long time.
Well, we had a kid in our first few years. Her name was Taylor Slopey, who went on to play 4 years at Georgia and really played some pro ball and was an outstanding ball player. There's this one kid, I think she's at UCLA now, not playing shortstop there. They put her in center field. I guess they make a mistake. I had her leading off. They've got her hitting 4 or 5. So she was pretty good, Maya Brady. But we don't need the Maya Bradys and the Michaela Castors. We follow their lead. And those are the type of kids that you want in the program to bring everybody up.
So is Tom Brady helping out at Oaks Christian with when Maya was there? Did he come over and help you out?
Let me just say something. Maya and her mother are softball players, and I kind of watch Tom Brady, but it just tough when we hear always his name come up because, hey, that kid has earned everything she's done without her uncle.
Yeah, well, she's great. There's no question about it, and it runs in the family. Why is Ventura County so strong in softball? I know Camarillo's got a terrific team, and there's other squads out there that are really good. What about that neck of the woods? And you've been out there a long time. Why is Ventura County so strong in girls softball?
I think it goes back a long ways. First of all, they've got good coaching all around. I mean, we've got a lot of travel ball coaches coaching high school. The kids get a chance to play top level in the off season, even if I think it's a little too long. But so the Camarillos, the Westlakes, the Aguras, Real Mesas, Oxnards, and everything else, they groom their kids the right way.
Pete, I want to ask you the big question. We've been talking about this for years, you and I specifically. We always talk about the San Fernando Valley teams, the one I specifically cover, and they're always really good. But when it comes to those playoffs and those high divisions, Division I, Division II, those Foothill League teams, Valencia, that they've had really good teams. You've had great teams, and we all know if you want to win a CIF title in softball, it's got to go through those Orange County teams or like a team like Norco. Can you just kind of talk about how difficult it is to win a high-level CIF Southern Section championship when teams like that are who you have to beat?
Glad you asked that. Even when I started coaching in the 70s, the hub of softball, like volleyball, was always in Orange County, and it's remained there. It's kind of gravitated to the Chino Hills and the Inland Empire. And believe it or not, that's where the best girls go. There's a couple of years that one team was rated number 1, and they carried 25 kids on the roster. Of 22 had either verbally committed or signed. It's a tough road to hoe once you go past the 405.
Before I let you go tonight, Coach, you've been doing this a long time. Over 600 victories, great milestone there. You got that a year ago. How long do you want to do it? You obviously still enjoy it, but how long do you want to continue to coach softball at the prep level?
Well, glad you asked. As long as I enjoy it, and as long as the kids enjoy it, and that they actually work to want to be better and buy into the culture and what we try to teach them. After a few years, softball's over. For some of them, it's over that never even make varsity. Some of it's over at high school graduation. It's over quick. Some of it's over after college. And, doggone it, the only reason I'm here is because I like being a mentor and I like being around the kids. And to me, having a culture that teaches kids what real life is about, and that not everything's a pat on the back and everything else, but you have to work at it. And I think through softball, sometimes us coaches spend more time with the kids in school than they do with their own family. And if we can be part of that family, and it's an Oaks Christian family, to help them out, that's why I stay.
Well, we're glad, and we're all better off the fact that you are still coaching. Stay with Oaks Christian. You've built a great program there. You're ranked number 1, and best of luck the rest of the way.
Well, I appreciate it, Randy. And sometime maybe next year, football, will shake your hand and tell you thank you. And Tarek, love the burrito.
Yeah.
Thanks for
all
having
right,
me
Pete.
on.
Always a pleasure.
All right, take care, Coach. I got some business to discuss with Tarek Fattal right now. All right, Dusty Stromer, we're talking a little high school basketball, is your Daily News Basketball Player of the Year. He's the young man. He's got another year left at Notre Dame as 6'6" guard. Why Dusty Stromer?
When you talk about what Notre Dame didn't accomplish, I know it was the abbreviated COVID season in the spring. They didn't have Ben Stoltzberg either, and he had a large part to do with it. And I mentioned him in Dusty's write-up, and he was an all-area player. But adding Dusty Stromer, played every single game this year, played through little injuries. You know, every player and athlete has them. Averaged more than, I think, 22 points a game. Had averaged, I think, almost 24 points per game in the Mission League, was the Mission League MVP. He's a bona fide scorer and shooter. He defends the other team's best player most of the time. And sometimes, listen, that team wasn't very big. If he wasn't guarding a perimeter player, he was down low, banging in the post, guarding like 6'9", 6'8" centers. So versatility, shot maker, fun to watch, played the whole season, and vastly improved his team. They won their first Mission League title since 2001 and earned their first open division berth ever. Dusty Stromer was our Daily News Player of the Year.
All right, Jack Pollen is throwing a couple all-star games this week at Taft on Saturday. The girls are at 3. The boys will follow after that. Pollen's done a terrific job organizing prep basketball. We've had him on this show. Are you going to be out there? I know he's going to have a collection of stars. And I know it's that time of year where we're going to have games all around Southern California, these all-star games.
Yeah, it's always a great event. Some of the best kids in the Valley, they're usually a dunk contest, maybe a three-point contest. So I highly recommend getting to Taft on Saturday. I believe there's a game at 3, 5, and 7. Yes, there's 3 games. So it'll be a great event. I unfortunately will not be there. I will be at the Arcadia Invitational on Saturday, covering pretty much the #1 track and field event in the country for amateur athletics, for track and field, and that's the Arcadia Invitational. We've got some really, really fast guys in the area I got to keep tabs on. Some of them, like Dijon Stanley from Granada and Jalen Barbarian from Simi Valley, 2 fast guys.
These great sprinters attached to that track and field meet. Arcadia is always phenomenal. Before I let you go, a couple basketball quick notes. We got about a minute left. Remy Martin of Kansas plays on a national championship team. He played in the Valley. So did Christian Coloco, who had a great run at Arizona, the big man, who was also at Sierra Canyon, like Remy Martin. Great finish for Martin to go out as a champion. He really fueled Kansas winning the title game against North Carolina.
That's right. I mean, we're talking about, gosh, I can't remember when Virginia won the national championship. Was that a couple years ago? But Kihei Clark from Taft was on that team, point guard. Remy Martin from Sierra Canyon, a point guard, came off the bench in that game, in the national title game for Kansas. So within recent years, we've had 2 local point guards win national championships. Yeah,
Kihei Clark's career just ended this year in the NIT. Phenomenal career. At Virginia. Again, he started as a freshman. He was on that national championship team. And as we've talked about, Remy Martin gets a national championship. And both those guys played for Jack Pollen in all-star games too, which is interesting.
Yeah, those guys were part of a lot of big games, one being the Battle of the Valley all-star game. Yeah, that's correct.
All right, Tarek, we'll do it again next week. What do you think?
Looking forward to it. Thursday night. It's a date.
How much fun was Ackerman and Borenstein and softball tonight? That was pretty good stuff, huh?
Yeah, listen, Anytime you get Ackerman on, he's gonna. You don't know what he's gonna. I mean, look, that's the first time we've seen someone bring a tortilla live on the air. You just never know with the guy.
Yeah, he's a wild card, but he's a great coach. Tarek, we'll talk to you next week. Everyone, stay with us every Thursday night, live at 9 o'clock, right here on LA 36. We'll have a brand new show for you again next Thursday at 9. For Tarek, I'm Randy. We'll see you next Thursday, right here, live on SoCal Prep Report. Good night, everybody.